Disseminating dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar, 7 p.m. in Porto Novo. Good evening and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM, Facebook, YouTube, and online at wadr.org. First, our top stories. ECOWAS Election Observation Mission in Benin meets with stakeholders ahead of April 12 election. Rising insecurity in Nigeria forces U.S. government to order non-essential embassy staff out of Abuja.
2022, the United States and many Western governments issued similar travel alerts, which sparked panic, but nothing happened. Nevertheless, we mustn't take this for granted.
The Gambia admits unlawful rearrest of acquitted murder suspect Ousseynou Bojang, raising rule of law concerns.
It's not lawful, it's regrettable, it happened. After having been formally released from the prisons, he could not have been rearrested without a further court order.
International Labour Chief arrives in Burkina Faso to strengthen ties between the organization and the country. Please stay with us for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Augustine Bill Coley.
Glad to have you join us. Less than 48 hours before Benin's April 12 presidential election, the ECOWAS Observation Mission is stepping up efforts to ensure a transparent and credible vote. Led by former Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo, the mission has deployed more than 100 observers and experts across the country. These include 8 short-term observers for election day alongside long-term experts and young professionals monitoring the entire process. Sankole Janko has more in the following report.
Since arriving in Cotonou on April 8, Akufo-Addo and his team have held a series of high-level meetings with key institutions involved in the electoral process. At the National Autonomous Electoral Commission, discussions with its president Saka Lafia focused on preparations, including the distribution of electoral materials, the organization of polling stations, and security arrangements. The delegation also met with the president of the Constitutional Court, Dorothy Sosa, whose institution is responsible for validating the vote and announcing final results. Talks extended to the media regulator. Eduardo Loco, president of the High Authority for the Audiovisual and Communication (HAC), briefed the mission on measures to ensure balanced media coverage during the election period. ECOWAS reiterated that it is working closely with Beninese authorities to guarantee a peaceful and credible election that reflects the will of the people. More than 7.8 million voters are expected to cast their ballots across 17,000 polling stations nationwide. The race is largely between two presidential candidates, Romuald Wadani and opposition candidate Paul Hunkpe, following the disqualification of several key contenders. The campaign is set to end this Friday.
Sankole Janko with that report. In Cote d'Ivoire, the Parti Democratique de Cote d'Ivoire, PDCR, is marking its 80th anniversary under the theme of unity and renewal. The festivities were officially launched yesterday in Abidjan. In a contest marked by internal tensions, the party's president, Sheikh Tijan Cham, speaking from abroad, issued a strong call for unity and the mobilization of party members ahead of the upcoming political milestone. Nadia Tete tells us more.
Weakened in recent months by internal divisions, the PDCI is seeking to make this anniversary a turning point. The aim is to rally members around the party's founding values, unity, peace and dialogue. Caliste Iapo is Executive Secretary-in-Chief of the PDCI.
Through our elders, our martyrs and our children, through the sweat of the pioneers, the tears of our mothers, and the smiles of the youth who carry our future, we pledge to make this 80th anniversary a springboard, not a tomb. At the PDCI RDA, we do not forget where we come from. We remember. Every structure must become a driving force, and every action must move us forward. We can no longer afford approximation, nor the luxury of division and fragmentation.
In the same vein, party president Sheikh Tijani Thiam urged members to make the Jubilee a moment of collective renewal. He called on them to strengthen their commitment in order to reposition the PDCI on the national political stage. Through this commemoration, the PDCI aims to move beyond recent turbulence and position itself for new political gains. The celebrations are expected to conclude in October 2026.
Abidjan correspondent Marcel Areston-Blair's report presented by Na Dedetiti. Here in Senegal, sovereignty, patriotism, and the idea of a multipolar world were at the heart of an exchange between Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko and French geopolitical analyst Pascal Boniface on Thursday in Dakar. The meeting held at the Musée des Civilisations Nori comes amid tensions surrounding some of the Senegal's recent political choices. Christopher Teacher reports.
The discussion focused on how African states can assert their sovereignty in an international context marked by shifting global power dynamics. For Senegalese authorities, this means having the ability to freely determine the country's political direction without external pressure. According to Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko, sovereignty must be fully reflected in public decision-making.
Legal certainty, budgetary discipline, economic transformation, well-managed international negotiations, strong institutions, and respect for public commitment. But stopping at these elements is not enough. Sovereignty is not only a matter of structures, but it's also a matter of will. And that is where patriotism, which is deeply important to us, comes in.
For his part, Pascal Boniface pointed to changing global power dynamics, noting that African states now have greater rooms for maneuver. He says Senegal's assertion of sovereignty forms part of a global transformation in the global order.
European countries have long sought independence from others. We must therefore recognize this growing desire for autonomy, one that is likely to lead to more balance and ultimately more productive partnerships. In that sense, Senegal's effort to assert its sovereignty more strongly than before is, in my view, an advantage for France, as it creates a relationship in which both sides benefit.
The meeting comes at a time when several African countries are advocating for a new form of engagement with Western power. Increasingly, sovereignist leaders are coming to power, promoting what they describe as a win-win partnership between Africa and the West.
Christopher Teacher voiced that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
And now to security matters. The United States government has ordered non-essential American embassy staff and their families to leave Abuja over growing security concerns. This advisory has sparked anxiety among residents in Nigeria's capital. The development has raised questions about the nature of the threat and whether such warnings could trigger panic among the public. WDR's Abuja correspondent Yechenu Sasetu reports.
The directive issued by the U.S. Department of State followed an assessment of Nigeria's security situation, citing risks including crime, terrorism, kidnapping, and civil unrest. The advisory also urged American citizens to reconsider travel to Nigeria while maintaining heightened alert levels for several parts of the country. In reaction, some Abuja residents say the warning has heightened fear.
It is scary. If the U.S. Embassy is telling their employee to leave, it means that the insecurity in the country is getting worse.
I would say it's 50-50, 50% shock and 50% not so shocking to me because of all the happenings that have been going on.
2022, the United States and many Western governments issued similar travel alerts, which sparked panic, but nothing happened. Nevertheless, we mustn't take this for granted.
Security analyst Olumayowa Olaniyi says while such advisories are standard diplomatic practice, they can trigger public anxiety if not properly managed.
It speaks to the fact that security situation in the country is fluid, is constantly changing. Looking at everything that is going on, there are concerns, very serious concerns about the way security is bolstered in this part of the country.
On intelligence sharing, he emphasizes the importance of collaboration between foreign governments and Nigerian authorities to prevent potential threats before they occur. For WADR, Yechinu Sasetu in Abuja.
In Niger, calls for justice are growing louder 27 years after the assassination of former President Ibrahim Barry Mainassara. His family and supporters continue to demand full accountability for his death. On April 9, 1999, Mainassara was shot dead at Niamey Airport in an attack widely believed to have been carried out by members of his own presidential guard. More than 2 decades later, the circumstances surrounding his killing remain unresolved, despite a 2015 ruling by the ECOWAS Court of Justice, which held the Nigerian state responsible and ordered compensation for his family. The issue has recently resurfaced following the 2025 National Conference on Refundation, which renewed calls for the truth to be established. As Niger marks another anniversary of his death, his family says the wait for justice and closure continues. Jibril Barry Mainassara, a brother of the late president, explains the situation.
We know who did it. It is not a mystery. The individuals involved were armed, and none of them later admitted responsibility, saying they acted in collaboration with elements of the political class and sections of civil society. At the time, groups such as the Front for the Restoration and Defense of Democracy were active, along with some civil society organizations. There were also external powers involved, and their role was not hidden.
Jibril Barry Mainassara is the brother of the assassinated Nigerian President Ibrahim Barry Mainassara. Still in the Central Sahel, the Director General of the International Labour Organization, Gabriel Fossum Hongbo, is on a working visit to Burkina Faso. Hongbo is in Ouagadougou to strengthen cooperation between the Sahelan country and the Labour Organization. He was received on arrival by Burkina Faso's Foreign Affairs Minister, Karamoko Jean-Marie Traoré. Imo Edit gives the details.
Speaking during the meeting, the ILO Director General emphasized the importance of engaging directly with local authorities. He noted that field visits help ensure that international support reflects the vision and strategies defined by the country itself. He also highlighted the need to compare global perceptions with realities on the ground, pointing out that information shared through some channels, especially social media, may not always present an accurate picture. Discussions between the two officials also focused on the ongoing security and humanitarian challenges facing Burkina Faso, as well as opportunities for development, particularly in youth employment. The ILO chief commended the government's efforts to prioritize young people in public policy and acknowledge progress in economic and financial governance. For his part, the Foreign Affairs Minister welcomed the visit, saying it will help improve the country's international image and enhance cooperation with development partners. The visit comes part of a broader regional tour by the ILO Director General across member countries of the Alliance of Sahel States, aimed at strengthening partnerships in the region.
Imo Edit with that report. You are listening to Newslink on West Africa, Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar, on Facebook, YouTube, and all WADR's apps. Here is a reminder of our top stories. ECOWAS Election Observation Mission in Benin meets with stakeholders ahead of April 12 election. Rising insecurity, Nigeria forces U.S. government to order non-essential embassy staff out of Abuja. The Gambia admits unlawful rearrest of acquitted murder suspect Osenu Bojan, raising rule of law concerns. International Labour Chief arrives in Burkina Faso to strengthen ties between the organization and the country. Still ahead in the news, we have guest interview and the sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Many thanks for being with us. We are streaming live on YouTube at WADR and on Facebook, WADR English Service. In Mali, there is a growing discontent in the education sector that may disrupt academic activities, particularly as end-of-year examinations draw nearer. Tension between the Ministry of National Education and teachers' unions following a recent decision to deploy teachers holding professional bachelor's degrees to basic schools. For unions, the decision breaches commitments under the October 15, 2016 agreement and threatens to strike if no compromise is reached. Francis Boniface reports.
The situation stems from a letter dated April 2 from the Minister of National Education directing heads of teaching academies to within 15 days assign teachers with professional bachelor's degrees to basic schools. According to the government, the measure is aimed at strengthening staffing levels in pedagogical support centers. However, for the unions that signed the October 15, 2016 agreement, the decision is unacceptable. They argue that the move violates commitments made under social dialogue, particularly the Stability Pact. Usman Al-Modu, spokesperson for the signatory unions of October 15, 2016.
Today, regarding the letter from the Minister of National Education, we believe, based on the relevant legal texts, that it is legally unfounded, strategically unsound, and above all, pedagogically inappropriate. We remain committed to the Stability Pact. The silence of education unions does not mean there are no problems. Rather, we have chosen to address these issues within the framework of that pact. This process goes beyond trade unions, involving continued dialogue with the departments responsible for social dialogue and the public service.
In response, the education unions have announced plans to hold a General Assembly on the matter. They are not ruling out the possibility of a strike if no compromise is reached. In the meantime, they are calling on authorities to return to dialogue in order to prevent a fresh crisis in the education sector. So far, the Ministry of National Education has not issued a response.
Bamako correspondent Aliyu Cham's report presented by Francis Boniface. The Gambia's Justice Minister has admitted that the rearrest of acquitted murder suspect Osinu Bojan was unlawful and not supported by any court order. Dauda Jallo made the remarks during a recent press briefing describing the move as regrettable and a failure to follow due legal process. The development has raised fresh concerns about respect for the rule of law in the country, even as Bojan has now been released. WADR's Banjul correspondent Sandona Mendy reports.
Osinu Bojang, who is now free again, had been accused of killing 2 police officers in the Sukuta Jaban traffic light shooting. His rearrest, authorities now admit, had no legal basis. Speaking to journalists, Justice Dauda A. Jallo said the decision to rearrest Bojang was not backed by a competent court.
It's not lawful, it's regrettable, it happened. After having been formally released from the prisons, he could not have been rearrested without a further court order.
The admission has triggered strong reactions from civil society actors and right groups who say the incident undermines the Constitution and threatens the rule of law. Human rights activist Madi Jobate says,
issue is, why would it happen in the first place? If truly the government has respect for the Constitution and all that it entails, the rule of law, the separation of powers, and the respect for the independence and the authority of the judiciary.
Despite the controversy, the Justice Minister maintains that the government remains committed to upholding the law and says steps will be taken to prevent a recurrence. But even with Bojang now freed again, questions remain over accountability and what concrete actions will follow the minister's admission, as calls intensify for those responsible to be held to account. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Sangdona Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, the guest interview focuses on Nigeria, where the United States government has mandated non-essential staff at its embassy in Abuja to relocate due to security concerns. These scams amid heightened security tensions across the country, with recent attacks resulting in the deaths of several citizens, particularly in the north-central region. Why this is not the first time the U.S. has issued such an advisory to its staff in Abuja, security experts say the latest authorization signals a more pressing concern than previous situations. Our guest is Damilare Ebenezer, a Nigerian security expert who provides an analysis of the U.S. advisory.
The U.S. has different categorization, and we are not in the situation where the U.S. is evacuating its diplomatic staff here. So currently, the security situation in the country has not improved. And my understanding is that the U.S. government would rather make sure that the American citizens are aware of the risk instead of having to deploy assets to rescue kidnapped U.S. national. That's primarily the concern. But if you've been in this region for the past 10 years, we're not fully at war yet, but we are not at peace either. Let's put it that way.
Like you said, the security situation in Nigeria has not improved. To what extent should Nigerians be concerned about this adversary coming from the United States, which has also pledged intelligence support to combating terrorism in Nigeria?
Concerned? No. I don't think we should be, because it will not help. The real goal of the terrorists was to get us worried. This is the game being played, is to terrorize the people into normalizing what is absolutely unacceptable. So yes, we should be aware. We should be aware of the risk. We should now realize that the solutions for our problem would not come from outside the border of this country. That yes, there are people who would help us, but there is a limit to what that help could do, and that we need to transition from blaming politicians, blaming our history, blaming the colonial, blaming this, into asking the real question, that is, how do we stand against this darkness that is now virtually covering the region, the northern part of West Africa, and find a way to put an end to it. We can be scared now. That is too late.
When you say citizens can be scared, the reality is on the ground, especially in other regions of Nigeria, proves otherwise in terms of citizens being killed, bandits attacks taking place across the region. So with the U.S. angle coming, it's in our reality.
It is a reality that people are being killed. It's a reality that villages are being ransacked. It's a reality that people are getting kidnapped. That is an undeniable fact. You know, attack is not the only option. The villagers could surrender and refuse to resist the people attacking them, and there will be no attack. They are being attacked because they resist. And they resist because they refuse to yield to terror.
Are you saying they should give in to the order of bandits?
No. I'm saying if they are not afraid and if they are resisting, if you are living in Abuja or in Lagos or in Port Harcourt, what are you afraid of? Your form of fight cannot be complaining, cannot be crying, cannot be blaming. You have to find a way of providing the necessary support. It's because as a society we have not decided to fight this because it is war, and it is the worst kind of war because we are doing the killing. We are killing ourselves. There's no victory at the end of this war for anybody.
Finally, sir, with this latest adversary, does it mean that Nigeria's capital is expected to be attacked?
Really, the terrorists would attack Abuja if they can get their way out of it. They will attack anywhere if they can succeed. If the security forces could tell you the rate of terror attack plan they are disrupting on a monthly basis, it's not whether Abuja is expected to be attacked, because this is not the first time the U.S. is raising the authorization to leave for non-essential staff, is that the possibility of it had increased. And it has increased because of what is going on across the region, across the northern part of Nigeria. But look at it this way. So what that tells you is that they probably had different mechanism for assessing the threat level. And based on the increased number of attack and the geography of the attack, the risk, of course, of such happening in the capital has gone up.
Damilare Ebenezer is a Nigerian security expert providing analysis of the U.S. adversary for non-essential American staff at its embassy in Abuja. And in the sporting world, Mohamed Kudus has suffered a setback in his recovery from a quad injury, dealing a blow to both Tottenham Hotspur and Ghana. The 25-year-old forward, injured in January, was expected back in March, but is now reportedly sidelined for up to 3 more months, raising doubts about his availability for the upcoming World Cup. Tottenham now under coach Roberto De Zerbi confirmed the setback in a statement as concerns grow over Kudus' fitness ahead of a crucial period for club and country. Meanwhile, FIFA has announced its list of match officials for the 2026 World Cup following a rigorous 3-year selection process, according to Pelugui Colina. The expanded tournament, to be hosted by the United States, Canada and Mexico, will feature a record number of officials, including 52 referees, 88 assistants and 30 video match officials. 7 referees from Africa made the list, highlighting the continent's growing presence in global officiating. And finally, Mohamed El Shinawi has been handed a 4-match suspension after striking a referee following Ali's 1-1 draw with Ceramica Cleopatra in the Egyptian Pro League. The incident occurred after the goalkeeper reacted angrily to a late penalty decision that went against his team. League officials also fined him 50,000 Egyptian pounds. The Egypt international, who featured the Africa Cup of Nations 2025, will now miss key playoff matches as Al Ali chased the title, currently sitting third behind leaders Zamalek. And that's the latest in the world of sports. With that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal on 94.9 FM. Thank you for listening. Many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Umu Danyogo for the technical support. To interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English Service. I am Augustine Bill Curley. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County.
Radio Kaigama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Radio Bath FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.